We can find a lot of solutions in the past and also a lot of cautionary tales. And frankly, we need all the help we can get.
I think it's really important for the 9.5 million of us who call New Jersey home, or the 330 million who call America home, that they know that they know how important New Jersey was in the Revolutionary War. And I'm proud that we're doing just that. We're telling our story loud and proud.
As somebody who grew up in Pennsylvania thinking that we were superior, and I've come to realize since I moved to New Jersey that there's really so much here to endear us all to this state.
You have to deal with the ugly stuff, or we don't get better. We don't get stronger. Those conversations have to take place, not because we're Debbie Downers or we're woke. It's the opposite. It's smart. It's because that's the only way we get stronger as a nation.
I'm Justin Williams, history professor and comedian, and welcome to the trailer episode for a new upcoming podcast series called Garden State Roots. To celebrate 250 years of New Jersey's amazing revolutionary history, the folks at the New Jersey Historical Commission thought it would be great to explore the contributions Jersey has made to our modern culture. From music to film, sports to tech, and from food to politics, you wouldn't believe some of the things we take for granted that trace back to revolutionary forces here in New Jersey. Joining me today is New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy and author and Rutgers history professor Dr. Kristin O'Brassill-Kulfan. So, guys, let's make the case for why people should listen to this series. Maybe I can start by asking you, Governor Murphy, why is history important for us to understand in the year 2026?
Hey, Justin, thanks for having me. Kristin, honored to be on with you. Go Rutgers. Listen, this is a big deal. I'll make a point very specific to New Jersey's commemoration of the 250th anniversary of our country, and that's the following. More battles were fought in New Jersey than in any other American state. But if you looked at the bicentennial, or you looked at the decades that preceded or followed that, you'd never know that. You would think the entire war was fought in and around Boston and Philadelphia. So we committed probably 2 or 3 years ago at this point that we were going to take back the narrative, with all due respect to those parts of the country. I think it's really important for the 9.5 million of us who call New Jersey home, or the 330 million who call America home, that they know that they know how important New Jersey was in the Revolutionary War. And I'm proud that we're doing just that. We're telling our story loud and proud.
Oh, great. And yeah, we'll actually be talking a little bit about the Revolutionary War on our episode about how New Jersey's been a battlefield. So, great mention there. But Governor Murphy, just a follow-up question. What's your relationship with history? Was it a subject that you liked in school growing up?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I've lived it. I've lived around the world in the private sector, in Europe and Asia, and obviously in America. And I was the United States ambassador to the Federal Republic of Germany under President Barack Obama. And Germany's history is probably, other than the American history, is the history I know best. And that's something that we should probably come back to during our discussion, because it's not all good in the comparisons between their history and our history.
And so has that kind of historical context, has that informed your decision making as a policymaker?
Absolutely. I mean, the phrase history does or does not repeat itself. Absolutely. We like to think of ourselves as a Moneyball administration, meaning, we study the past. We study cause and effect. What did this particular bill lead to in actuality, or this particular executive order? And that informs our actions without question, and it has over our past 8 years in office.
Oh, pretty cool. And Kristin, I know that you can certainly make the case as a professor of history about why we should study history. So please, for the people that haven't had a chance to be in one of your classes, let us know why we should still be studying the past.
I think it's one of the most empowering topics to explore for people as individuals and also for communities in general. Nothing about the world we live in is inevitable. almost nothing is bound to happen. Instead, it's created by the everyday decisions that individuals have made. And our understanding of US history and history around the world is the result of decisions that individuals and groups of people have made. So I think that's a really kind of empowering way to think about our relationship between past and present. And I think too, thinking about commemoration, we're telling the story of what happened 250 years ago and trying to remember those important issues that were relevant during the Revolutionary era, and thinking about how the stories that we tell about the 18th century have been different when we told those stories in the 19th century and in the 20th century. So I think that we really have an opportunity to make our narratives about the past more nuanced and to better understand the complexity of the Revolutionary era, the bicentennial era, and the moment that we're living in now. Because we think it's messy now, but history has always been incredibly messy. And there's a lot of complexity there that we can pick apart and learn from.
Governor Murphy, a question for you. Which historical monument or historical moment, or both, has meant the most to you as governor?
Well, I think on the monument side, it's got to be the Statue of Liberty, because it screams out our status as the world's ultimate immigrant nation. And sadly, right now, a reputation that we're shredding in Washington in ways that we just don't need to be doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure I've got a particular moment. I'd say any of the great successes in the civil rights movement would be high on that list. My wife and I were in Chicago the night Barack Obama got elected in Grant Park. And the night he got elected as president of the United States, as the first African-American to ever be elected president. That was an incredible moment. I'm sure there are others, but those are a couple that come to mind.
And Professor, the same question to you.
I would say, thinking about a space, a monument, a site in New Jersey that really encapsulates our history. For me, I would say the Botto House and the American Labor Museum in Haledon, right outside of Paterson, New Jersey, where silk workers in the factories in Paterson went on strike to demand better pay, fair working conditions, and did so while speaking more than a dozen languages and collaborating across work status, labor status, immigration status, and developing a really profound call for justice. So that would be the space for me. It's a National Historical Landmark. It's a really beautiful building. And in terms of a historical moment, I would say maybe the trial of the Camden 28, when Father Michael Doyle and a bunch of other activists came together to demand that the recruitment of soldiers for the Vietnam War effort not be as racist and classist. They were demanding fairness across their communities.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I gotta jump on this, Justin. First of all, I have stood on that front porch in Haledon. I could not agree with you more, Kristin, how extraordinary and important that home is, or that house is. And is Father Michael Doyle the Michael Doyle who only recently passed away, maybe 2 or 3 years ago?
Yes, yeah, from Camden. Mm-hmm.
He was a giant, absolute giant.
Yeah, and one of the things we do in this series is we do talk about the history of strikes and labor history in New Jersey as, like, an important sort of revolutionary moment that's gotten us sort of to the present. Professor, like, what are some of the dangers, especially when we talk about in the age of sort of misinformation and things like that, of like distortions of history, especially when they have importance to the present?
I think it's an existential threat if history is being intentionally and willfully misrepresented and manipulated. I think it hurts all of us, because it can stand in the way of us having a better understanding of where we come from as individuals, and also where our shared values and sense of governance and justice comes from. And I think we need to have that clear sense of nuance and accuracy There was a brilliant Haitian philosopher and historian, Michel Troyot, who said that there's two kinds of historical authenticity and historical truth: that which happened and that which is said to have happened. And sometimes people like to lean in on that second one a little bit and manipulate it for their own purposes. I think we see that a lot with kind of originalist interpretations of the Constitution and things like that. And I think it's a missed opportunity, right? If we care about our past, if we care about our country, then we should want to face the complexity and the difficult history alongside the super exciting and interesting stories that we have to tell as well. So in New Brunswick, where I teach, we have a statue to Colonel John Nielsen, who was a Revolutionary War officer, served under Washington. And some people say he was the second person ever to read the Declaration of Independence aloud after it was signed. And he was also an enslaver who bought and sold people in his official capacity as a Revolutionary War officer. And there's a statue of him. And I think it's really important for us to think about what that means and to use that as an opportunity to have some really hard conversations about who we want to be as people.
Yeah, and sticking with that thing, Governor Murphy, I just wanted to ask, like, what's your view on us sort of talking about, sort of complicated or uncomfortable sort of historical topics? Is that something that you come across in your capacity as governor?
You have to. Barack Obama, my former boss, used to say all the time, we wake up every morning to try to perfect our union, and you can't perfect it unless you deal with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's nothing that is a stronger through line in terms of our imperfect union than slavery and the centuries of discrimination and the carnage that led to for African Americans in this country. You got to face up to it, okay? You have to deal with the ugly stuff, or we don't get better. We don't get stronger. I don't know, Kristin, I was not aware of that statue. I'm not sure that statue is standing 5 years or not from now, but the tough conversations that you referred to, those conversations have to take place, not because we're Debbie Downers or we're woke. It's the opposite. It's smart. It's because that's the only way we get stronger as a nation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have 2 episodes that deal precisely with those kind of difficult things of, like, exploitation of people, especially the episodes, How New Jersey Fed Your Family and How New Jersey Has Been a Battleground, specifically deal with some, like, very uncomfortable topics for the exact reasons that the governor outlined there. I just want to say that kind of following up on what you said, Governor Murphy, but like, and also with your experience in Germany, what role do you see history in sort of building empathy for future generations?
Well, I think it's a little bit of maybe the flip side of the same coin that we just talked about. Kristin mentioned the difficult conversations we need to have. I mentioned you better darn well understand the history of slavery in our country or fascism elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Ken Burns has become a friend of ours. My wife and I literally cold called him in New Hampshire and said, listen, would you be willing to preview your American Revolution series in New Jersey, which he did at NJPAC in Newark for 2,500 people. We also hosted him for a small dinner at the governor's mansion. And several things struck me. Number one, the pressure to politicize history these days is unlike any other time, at least in modern history. We've kind of talked about that. But the other point that really screamed out at me was the diversity, which was overwhelming. And I think that to me has got to create a certain pride. If you're a Native American, if you're a woman, if you're a descendant of slaves, there's enormous layers of complexity, a lot of which, some of which is terrifying, obviously the violence, but there's a lot of stuff in there that should make us stronger and feel better about ourselves. And I hope those lessons get told accurately and that future generations benefit from that.
And I think this is a great follow-up for you, Kristin, because you are on the front lines of teaching accurate history. Have you seen examples like this with the current climate towards academia, the pressure to sort of politicize history? How are you sort of dealing with that, maybe personally or just even in sort of the wider sort of field of being a history teacher?
I think it's a really great time to remember what we do well and why we do it, and to really go back to the sources that we have that help us tell this story, because we can't change that. There may be an executive order to restore truth and sanity to American history, but the sources are there. The sources haven't changed, right? So the actual documents that help us understand what was happening in the 1770s in New Jersey, what was happening in Patterson in the 1910s, right? That's still there. And it's still our job to present that in a way that people can understand and learn from, and to really understand the complexity of the different actors involved in shaping the way these events have unfolded. So people might want, watching the news, sitting in a classroom, might want that kind of refined and smoothed narrative. But the actual history is, we don't have the benefit of hindsight in the same way, right? So we need to be able to kind of accept that there's a lot that we don't know. And the things that we do know, we're basing these narratives off of the sources that we have, and to have fidelity to that, I think, is what keeps me sane in the classroom.
Hey, Justin, I want to jump in on what Kristin just said. I think sadly, it matters where you live, and in Kristin's case, where you choose to prosecute your professional career. There was an article, Kristin, you might have seen this, a big piece in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago about the politicization at the University of Texas, Austin, in terms of their curricula. And thank God we're in New Jersey for all of our challenges and imperfections. That's a completely different world. So you could see in America with a kid, depending on where they grew up and where they ultimately went to college and who taught them, having a completely different view of our country and its history. And that to me is beyond troubling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I appreciated what you said, Kristin, about going to the sources. I tell my students all the time, I go, I'd love to teach that I have a full head of hair, but the primary sources show that that's not true. But Professor, yeah, kind of following up on that, how do you see being a professor of history as sort of promoting the teaching of empathy to sort of young people?
I think one of the best tools that we can offer to students and young people, but to learners of all ages, is to be able to understand the kind of multi-layered and intersectional factors that influence how somebody perceives an event or chooses to act in an event, right? So I mostly study people who have experienced poverty or have been disenfranchised economically, socially. So I'm essentially writing about people who left very few sources of their own because they were prevented from gaining literacy or didn't have the resources to document their lives and their preferences. And I think that understanding and being able to identify the ways in which they still shaped our societies, contributed to, building communities and industry and all of that, it's a really, really profound reminder that each and every one of us is making a contribution of some sort to the world that we're living in. And so I think that studying the past and understanding what people have fought for, what people have struggled for, and that they did so without knowing the outcome, without knowing that it would work, that it would be successful, right? The strikers in Patterson, they did not know if they were going to get an 8-hour workday. They did not know what their lives would be like, what their children's lives would be like in 20, 30 years. We see that now. And so it's easier for us to kind of understand where that motivation might come from. But I think it's a good reminder to keep up that sense of perseverance and understanding.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Governor Murphy, just kind of building off that point, one of the things that I'm fascinated as someone who, has been in New Jersey for over a decade, but is not originally from there, is how New Jersey historically is sort of at the center of everything. So, one of the things we, study on the show is like, talking about New Jersey's contributions to what's going to become Hollywood, also what's going to become hip hop culture. So I guess the question is, Governor Murphy, does New Jersey actually get its props for how influential it is as a state?
Justin, I'm still getting over your hairline, so please bear with me a second here. Um, uh, it hasn't, but it finally, I believe, is. We're getting there. We're becoming a globally significant player in film and television. We have the World Cup soccer final next July in East Rutherford. That'll be watched by 3.5 to 4 billion people. We are becoming a major player in generative artificial intelligence. Just to pick several examples where I think we are not just punching at our weight, because I think your question, which is a good one, is, okay, we know the substance of the argument in New Jersey has always been strong, but the perception of that substance has been lacking. And I think we're closing that gap, and I think we're closing it meaningfully. And God willing, that continues to close, and we'll continue to get our fair share of credit.
And what do you see the role of New Jersey continuing to be an innovator in sort of music and film and digital content, not just like economically, but also like culturally? What do you see the importance of that being?
Hugely. By the way, at the center of our story inevitably is Rutgers. And I'm not just saying that because Kristin's on. I was just on with President Bill Tate an hour or two ago. In so many respects, as Rutgers goes, so goes the state. So Kristin, good luck, continued good luck to you and all your colleagues. But as it relates to the creative arts, we are the talent state, right? So you look at everybody. I mentioned Bruce and John, to Meryl Streep, to the Sugar Hill Gang, to my buddy Eric B. and Rakim. And there's evidence all over the state that we ooze talent. And now we've sort of put rocket boosters underneath some of that, particularly film, television, digital. And you're not just getting, Netflix is building a 300-acre campus in New Jersey. We just recently announced a big campus, film and television campus in Bayonne. There's another one in the South Ward of Newark, and it's everything from sound stages to post-production and everything in between. And we're a big union state, and that's a big union industry. I always remind everybody, George Clooney is in a union. So that's another reason why it's a natural for us. So I think we're sort of, film was invented in New Jersey. The first studio was in New Jersey. We were Hollywood before Hollywood was Hollywood. We're reclaiming our rightful place across all of those interests. And I think that's got to be only good news for Jersey.
Yeah, and speaking of hip hop, and as a kind of Essex County guy, got to give a shout out to Queen Latifah and Lauryn Hill as well.
The Queen and Lauren. Lauren, by the way, at the World Cup draw a couple of weeks ago, who comes out and performs but Lauryn Hill?
Amazing. And if you're interested in sport, we have an episode on how New Jersey contributed to the growth of American sporting. So absolutely check it out. And then Kristin, I have a question for you. What is the opportunity here from your point of view as a historian to celebrate 250 years of New Jersey?
I think there's a lot that could help you win some really good arguments with your friends who live elsewhere in the country about what makes New Jersey so great. As somebody who grew up in Pennsylvania, thinking that we were superior, and I've come to realize since I moved to New Jersey that there's really so much here to endear us all to this state. The Roebling factory in South Jersey, right? The Roeblings built the Brooklyn Bridge. So even New York can't claim that one. So I think that there's an awful lot to celebrate, and a lot that we might not quite want to celebrate, but we certainly want to commemorate and think about, and spend some time exploring how we got to where we are and what we've tried before and what we haven't tried yet, to solve some of the problems that are challenging our New Jersey residents today. So I think that we can find a lot of solutions in the past and also a lot of cautionary tales. And frankly, we need all the help we can get.
And the same question for you, Governor Murphy. Like, what do you think about this opportunity to celebrate 250 years? What does it mean potentially?
It's a really unique moment for our state. I mentioned the World Cup final, July 4th and July 19th. Those are the two dates, the 250 and the World Cup final. And in many respects, the eyes will be on New Jersey. So let's tell our story. We got basically 6 or 7 months to run here. Let's tell the whole truth and nothing but the whole truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's tell those stories. Let's be really aggressive about it. You know, my view is you make hay while the sun shines. The spotlight is on Jersey. Let's own this moment, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I think we'll all be better for it.
Yeah, and I think one of the great things about Jersey telling its own story is to get sort of like the real, like accurate story of what New Jersey is and how complicated New Jersey is. I don't know, have either of you experienced people sort of making New Jersey the butt of jokes? Or they've just said they felt bold to say things to you about it. I'll give you one example. I live in Newark, and I had someone that was coming to visit me, and they were surprised that Newark was not. This was like 2015. They were surprised that Newark wasn't their vision of the Jersey Shore from 1980. And I was like, you have no sense of like context or accurate about this, about like the state, right? So the question I have for both of you is like, number one, what is like the weirdest thing someone said to you once they hear New Jersey, where you're like, where does that even coming from? And then also, how important is it to you to be part of this project to sort of make sure that New Jersey is no longer the butt of the joke?
Ooh, when I was growing up in Pennsylvania, people used to say, let's blow up New Jersey and give Pennsylvania a beach.
Oh.
So that's one, to your first question, Justin. But the second question, I think I've been collaborating with the New Jersey Historical Commission since I think 2019, 2020, when we began to have conversations about what the themes were that we should plan to explore in the 250th and to develop an interpretive framework for how we could, best take advantage of the moment to explore New Jersey history and national history, as Governor Murphy said. And the thing I think is really crucial here is that we focused on themes that were important to New Jersey in the 1770s, but also that connect us in the intervening 250 years and with stories that are relevant for peoples around the world, right? Asking questions not just about stuff that happened during the war, but also, how do you know you're living in a revolutionary moment? Right? These kind of broader questions about social change, political change, that I think are really important. So that's what this whole project means to me, is an opportunity to do that.
Okay. I'll give you, Justin. So I think a lot of the butt of jokes come from one of several past chapters of corruption, past industrial profile of cars, trucks, and chemicals and pollution that goes with that. And then I think even current day, I only know New Jersey on the Jersey Turnpike, even then in the northern part of the state. And you get a lot of noise that comes from all that. One of my favorite lines pushing back on that is from the late chef Anthony Bourdain, everyone called him Tony, from Bergen County. And he used to say there are two types of people in the world: people who come from New Jersey and people who claim they're from New Jersey, which I love. Or my line, which I've patented: we're from Jersey, baby, and you're not. So I think we have to always show our attitude, our grit, our steel backbone. And you think about other states. Does Connecticut have that reputation? You pick fill in the blank. No. There's one state that's got, are you talking to me? It's Jersey, baby.
I love, the Jersey only as turnpike thing. That is so infuriating as people bringing that up. Governor Murphy, I have one last question about that, though. Do you realize that your trademark slogan has actually been made into a viral club remix on Instagram?
I have seen it.
Yeah,
I have seen it. I wish I could dance as well as the figure dances in that remix, but I have seen it. I'm humbled and honored. And the story around that, you can't make up. I made that up with 10 seconds to go. I don't know where it came from, but it worked.
Well, I think that is a great point to end our conversation today. I want to thank you so much for your time, Governor Phil Murphy and Dr. Kristin O'Brassill-Kulfan. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Justin.
Thank you.
Well, you heard it here first. History is not just important, but vital, especially the history of the great state of New Jersey. Make sure to subscribe now to get all of the episodes of Garden State Roots as they drop. Each episode will have show notes with further reading and a ton of information about the historic sites you can visit across the state throughout the 250th anniversary year. Until next time, goodbye.